turn to Colossians 1. We're going to look at just two scriptures there to set the tone of what we'll be doing, and we'll be in Daniel, the 8th chapter. Look at 12. Giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us meet. King James says, meet is the same concept of when God created Eve, a help meet for Adam. He's saying here, giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us fit to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. God makes you fit to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. I see that. How does he do this? 13, who hath delivered us from the power of darkness and translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. The kingdom is in existence. The people at Colossians were a part of the kingdom. I say that to introduce to you Daniel the 8th chapter. 7th chapter, which is used extensively by those who would be premillennial. I'm not going to take the time. Josh has already done some of that, but there's so much more that could be done. It's not a biblical doctrine, and I say that because, and I started with the end of it rather than the beginning of it. The end of it is that the kingdom was not established. Only the church was as an afterthought. Well, I just started by showing you and I that the people at Colossians were in the kingdom. We are in the kingdom. We're delivered from the power of darkness and translated into the kingdom of his dear Son. There's no circumventing that. That's what it says. I think all of premillennialism falls off of their conclusion. Now, Byron and I were discussing, he'd heard so much of the premillennial point of view that he was pretty surprised when I said to him that the word rapture isn't even in the Bible. Oh, well, I heard all about the rapture, yeah. It's not there. And this is an age-old thing. It isn't brand new. You're not just running onto it. It started, I don't know where it started. First time I heard of it was a man wrote a book, The Late Great Planet Earth. His name was Walford. I've come to find out that he's a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary, or was. And it goes back then to Hal Lindsey, who learned from Walford. And then it went back again, I've forgotten the guy's name, but it's the Left Behind series. These are people who write well fiction, not fact. I'm going to tell you that much of what they twist is out of Daniel 7. I'm not going to address it any further than I've already addressed it unless you ask me a deliberate question, and I'll be happy, but that'll be after I'm finished. I'll be happy to go as far as you'd like to go. Now, this is apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature draws a picture, and from the picture you gain the truth. Now, it's interesting here because I'm going to tell you where we're going, so you're looking to either believe it or refute it as we go through it. I'm going to tell you this is a prophecy of Rome and the persecution of the Christians in AD 81 through 96. Now you've heard all about that persecution. This is a prophecy. The book of Revelation is the fulfillment. Well, I'll be. And as you read the beast as we're going through here, you'll find John in the Revelation refers to the same beast backwards. Revelation 13:2. Oh, why? Because he's looking backwards on it. And why Daniel going this way? Because he's looking forward on it. Oh. And we've taken this book chapter by chapter. It would not do well for me to skip 7. So I'm just going to give you not a liberal view, millennialism, a conservative view, an understanding of apocalyptic speech. I've never failed on that word before. I don't know where it went. Apocalyptic speech. All right. Chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. Well, now we've already studied that from Daniel 1, that Daniel is in captivity. And so we know real close to the year. If you want to contest that 2 or 3 years, I'm good with that. You make it all the way to today, and I'm not good with that. But in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. Now, some of those that would be liberal are saying, well, it wasn't really Daniel. Well, Daniel says it was Daniel that had the dream. Unless somebody's struggling with that, he said it again 2 more times in this chapter. It's Daniel's dream. I'm good with that. I don't need to fix that. Daniel had a dream, and visions on his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Man, I wish Daniel would have given me the detail too. I want the whole thing, Daniel. Nope, giving you the sum of the matters. So the dream was longer. The dream was more detailed than what we're looking at. But here is a conservative approach to Daniel 7. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, I saw. The recipient of the vision is Daniel. And behold, the 4 winds. Now, apocalyptic means you've got to go back in and discover the use of a wind. Well, I found it in Exodus 10. Now hold your place because we're certainly coming back. But if you look at Exodus 10, you'll see the idea that God is setting forth of the wind. And what he's talking about is the action of God. Look at 10 and verse 13. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind. Oh, the action of God. Upon the land all that day, and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. Oh, we know what this is. This is the plague. Yep. And he goes on, look at verse 19, and I'm hustling through it. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind. The east wind brought the locusts. What do you figure the west wind's going to do? You're right. Which took away the locusts and cast them into the Red Sea. There remaineth not one locust in all the coasts of Egypt. Now that's impressive that all the locusts are gone. Not one remains. None got hung in a crack. None got hung in a tree. None got anywhere. All were removed. It's the action of God in these winds. Now look at chapter 15, another story that you're familiar with. Look at verse 8. And with the blast of my nostrils, there's the wind. You know, it's not sneezing, it's God's action. The waters were gathered together, the flood stood upright as an heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. You might have already figured out the story. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them, they sank as lead in the waters. God killed the Egyptians, and he did it with a wind. It's the action of God. I'm back in Daniel. I mean, I could do more, but time won't allow. Behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. We could look, Isaiah 17, 12, and 13. The sea is apocalyptically speaking of nations that are in tumult. There's a lot of unrest, and that's why he uses the sea. I'm going to just say that without going and reading it. But watch the picture now. So right now, we've got the action of God, and we've got it on the peoples. And four great beasts came up from the sea, out of the peoples, diverse one from another. They're all different in character. Now watch this, because if you read this from Revelation 13:2, they're going to go backwards. So the lion will be the last. If you read it from Daniel, looking forward. Now that says a lot to you and me about the book of Revelation. Don't let somebody go to the book of Revelation and tell you this is yet future. It just didn't so. And I don't need to be able to go through the whole book to prove that. 1:1 says the time is at hand. At hand. When John wrote it, the time was at hand. Oh, I look at that and I see what he's setting forth that I might understand. The time being at hand. Well, I know what that means. And then he said, it must shortly come to pass. That's 1:1. And then in 1:3, he says the time is at hand. Must shortly come to pass. Now, if it hasn't been fulfilled yet, it wasn't very short. Oh, well, then you'll go look in the 22nd chapter. Watch it. Verse 6 and verse 10. And he says again, the time is at hand and must shortly come to pass. Oh, that tells me too much, or tells me quite enough about what the book of Revelation has reference to. Oh, okay. I'm back in the book of Daniel. And four great beasts came up from the sea, verse 3, came up out of the nations, diverse one from the other. The first was like a lion. Now I'm going to suggest to you that we studied these in chapter 2. And the first was Babylon. Oh. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wing. You ever seen a lion that had eagle's wing? No. It's a picture book. It's a lion, king of the beasts, can get around very quickly. That's Babylon. I beheld till the wings thereof were cut off. He couldn't get around so quickly anymore. And it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and the man's heart was given unto it. Now he's talking about grotesque. A four-legged creature made to stand on two, doesn't look right and doesn't do right. And his wings are cut off. Yeah, I see that. The second, and this is Medo-Persia. We studied it in chapter 2. But there, the apocalyptic literature was of a person, a being. And behold, another beast, a second, like a bear. And it raised up itself on one side. Now that has reference to 2 horns, and Persia was stronger than Medes. So that's what he's talking about there. And it had 3 ribs in his mouth, between his teeth, and they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. Greed is being described, and a voracious appetite. That was Medo-Persia. The Persians were much stronger than the Medes. He's drawing you a picture. Well, I go on. And he says, After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. This is Greece under Alexander. There have been 4 world powers. You can check your encyclopedia, anything you want to check. This is not something that was been done under some sort of blanket. It's understood. And this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. He's talking there after Alexander died. They were divided into 4 different ruling powers inside of Greece. Now we'll see more in a minute. And the 4th. And this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Well, I could tell you about the 10 horns, but ultimately, whether you agree with me on that or not, it's totally immaterial, because you get pretty much the same place. I wrote them so I could read them. I've taught this a number of times, but I never wanted to clutter my mind with these. Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian, and Titus were the 10, as it were, puppet kings. 10 horns. Watch verse 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. I'm going to tell you this is Domitian. He was the king from AD 81 through 96. It's Domitian. We're going to learn more about him and how badly he hates Christians. Before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Ooh, that's a Revelation study. But that's going to make this little horn, if the 3 are plucked up by the roots, going to make him the 8th. 3 are gone. There were 10. Now 3 are gone. So the little horn's being talked about. Domitian's going to end up the 8th. Plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. That's not blasphemy, that's bragging. But then beginning in 9, it's a judgment on Rome, the 4th beast. Watch it. I beheld till the thrones were cast or placed down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Hold your finger there and turn over to Revelation 1. See if we don't have a description of the Son of Man, the Ancient of Days. Start at verse 12 of Revelation 1. And I turned to see the voice. I like that. You don't turn to see voices. You don't see voices. You hear voices. But he turned to see the voice that spake unto me, and being turned I saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one likened unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head, watch it, do you remember Daniel? His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. And his feet likened unto fine brass, as if they burned in the furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. I'm going to stop right there and tell you and me, number one, if you ever get a real good perception of Jesus, you're going to fall down at his feet like a dead person. In respect and awe for Jesus. Do I need to keep on learning of Jesus? Ooh, yes. Because maybe I'm only partially down. I haven't fallen at his feet. John, the Apostle John, author of 5 New Testament books, gets a picture of Jesus, apocalyptic literature. And he says, I fell at his feet as a dead man that he might stand up with God alive in him. I'm going to go on now in 17. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead, and he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I'm the first and the last. Stand up, John. Now you've seen me like I am. You will forever live with respect toward me. I am he that liveth, watch it, and was dead. Who could that be? Got to be Jesus. And behold, I'm alive forevermore. Oh, a description of Jesus. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. The keys. And then he tells John, write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. Write it down, John. Write it down. That's the book of Revelation. I'm back in Daniel. I beheld the thrones were cast down. Now, what are you and I feeling? We're in captivity. What are we feeling? We're feeling that Babylon is king. There's so much here. God has never promised us that we won't be overrun by another nation. We think we're invincible. We aren't. I don't care how many ballistic missiles we've got. I don't care how many anti-ballistic missiles we've got, or nor how far they will go. If God ever makes the decision for us to lose, we lose. God is talking to people that are in captivity. And he's saying to them in captivity, I am God. I am the God that created Babylon. I am the God that created Medo-Persia. I am the God that created Alexander and the Grecian reign. I am the God that created Rome. And they're saying, but we're being hurt, God. We're being hurt by Babylon. We're in captivity. He said, don't worry about that. If you quit breathing, you come to be with me. If you don't quit breathing, I'm going to take you home when you've learned what you need to learn there. Ooh. Our God is the God of all nations. This is my Father's world. That's not just a song. That's what God says of himself. He goes on. I beheld till verse 9. Till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, Revelation 1, and the hair of his head like the pure wool,